So I'll just give folks a overview. The way this is going to work is Scott's going to share a little bit with us, and then George, and then I will, and I'll open it up for a discussion. We look forward to really just using this time to have folks respond to the questions that we asked. And if we ask something that, or if we don't ask something that you want to respond to, feel free to give it to us. We are really looking towards this group for feedback to help shape our next steps, which we will go into more. So that's what we have planned. We may not take the whole hour, or you guys might chat with us for an entire hour. This time is as you wish. And so, so yeah, just looking forward to that feedback. So with that said, I always like to start things, 5 after Scott, just in case someone's logging on. But I'll pass it to Scott Elyers, the TIDC brand new, shiny interim director, and let him tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Take it away, Scott.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, yes. So Scott Elyers, the interim executive director at TIDC, started on Monday. I know many of y'all from my days when I was the, had a different hat on, the improvement team director. Good to see many of y'all again. Sarah just wanted me to kind of, I guess, make sure that all of y'all knew who we are and what we do at TIDC and give you a little background on our project here. So for those of you who don't know, TIDC funds, oversees, and improves indigent defense in the state of Texas. So we have our grant program is what we're most well known for, I'd say. We provide funding to all of the counties through formula grant funding, but we also have improvement grants that we use to build public defender offices and manage assigned counsel programs throughout the state, as well as other innovations in indigent defense. Through our oversight or monitoring programs, we have fiscal monitoring and policy monitoring, and as part of that, we collect a lot of data from counties from across the state. And so we have a website that, that was really the first thing that TIDC did, I would say, is like, we got a website, up and running and started collecting indigent defense plans from all the counties and collecting data from them, because that was what was lacking when the Fair Defense Act passed in 2001. There was really no system in Texas. Frankly, it was kind of the wild, wild west. Every county was doing their own thing. There were even within counties, courts were doing their own thing. And so the Fair Defense Act, which created TIDC, really was kind of the initiation of like putting a system into place. And so our oversight program collects data from the counties, and hopefully some of y'all have seen our website where we report out all of that data on, macro level, kind of caseload, case information, payments information, how much, counties spend on various types of cases, but we also get a little more granular and can report on how many cases individual attorneys have closed in a year if they were appointed on cases, and how much they were paid, and all that. So that's our oversight and our data collection. And then finally, the last thing that we also have going on is our improvement section. And so improvement, we work a lot with the grants program to build public defender offices and manage assigned counsel programs. We do planning studies for counties. They'll come to us. We kind of act as a consultant of sorts to the counties who are interested in building offices. We'll, kind of map out what kind of staffing they need, how much it's going to cost, how much TIDC can fund. But we also do things like we have trainings that we do. We have our Future Indigent Defense Leaders program that Kathleen Casey Gammell runs for us. And that's, really training up the next generation of public defenders and assigned counsel in Texas. Publications, trainings, we do all that on the improvement side of things. So this project we've got here that Sarah's running, she is our fairly new research director here at TIDC. And one of the first things that we thought needed to be done was really an overhaul of our data collection, our data reporting. This is a system that the Public Policy Research Institute at Texas A&M built. George Naufal and his team, Judith, they've been working on this for over a year now themselves, and Sarah has come in and is now accelerating things. And so this conversation today is all about that, helping us make this website and our data collection as awesome as possible. So we're reaching out to folks like y'all to get your input on what you would like to see in our new website. So with that, I believe I'm turning it over to George.
Thank you, Scott, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is George Naufal, and I'm at the Public Policy Research Institute at Texas A&M University, and we've been working with the Indigent Defense Commission for more than 20 years now on several projects, but mainly on the website that we're talking about today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the website just briefly, so that if you have seen it, this is how it looks like. This is the website that we're talking about. It has information, county level data, whether it's expenditures, whether it's cases. A few years ago, we started doing also caseloads, and you can get information across all of the state, all of the counties, and then you can compare different counties and look at, across time. Something that also is very interesting is the indigent defense plans that each county provides to TIDC every 2 years. So we have all of those with fee schedules and all other information. And we've been maintaining this website for a while. In fact, what I'm going to do next is just give you a brief history of the website. So when TIDC was formed, and initially I think it was Texas Task Force on Indigent Defense in 2001, 2002, we had at PPRI, we'd been handling a website for the Office of the Governor, and a grant administrator at TIDC saw the website and kind of approached us to create a similar website for indigent defense in Texas. So the work started in 2002, and we hired a programmer, a full-time developer, and started basically working through setting up this website. The website went live on September 25, 2002, and the website that I just shared with you is basically what went live more than 20 years ago. And a couple of quick facts. We did launch the website as simple as possible back then, because many of the jurisdictions, especially in further away counties in Texas, were using dial-up internet connection back then. So we wanted a website that is easily accessible for jurisdictions without a lot of the visualization and demanding basically pages. The website then went through multiple iterations. We created a homepage for each county, so we have 254 counties. We improved indigent defense plan section in 2009. Before that, we would get plans from counties either through mail, regular mail, through fax, or sometimes just hard copies. And in those instances, the quality was poor. It was hard to, identify what the plan is all about and capture that. So in 2009, we moved away from that and created a place where the counties could upload those indigent defense plans in a text editor kind of format on the website, which was very successful back then. But, almost, more than 10 years later, technology has improved. So there is a lot more to do now with that kind of, application. We also created, formula grant application sections where you can create reports, update status, add amounts, show completion dates, and kind of look at those grant applications over time. And the last thing we did in 2021, we added a CPS component. Now, with that said, technology has changed a lot. The website has served its dues, and in fact, went beyond the call of duty. We've had more than 34,000 unique visitors over the 20 years, more than 18,000 indigent defense plans, more than 1,000 indigent defense plans, all collected and archived and accessible for the public. And we are working with TIDC now to build the website for the next 20 years. Getting an opportunity to do this and revamp a website, it doesn't happen often, and it's an exciting opportunity. And so, we want to make sure that we take full advantage of it. And in that sense, we want to also the vision is big. We're very optimistic, and Sarah will tell you more about what some of the things that we're doing in the background so that we can build as much information and feedback from everyone, including you guys. So thank you for taking the time to have us today, and I'm going to pass this to Sarah.
Thanks, George. And for those of you who don't know PPRI and George's work, he does a lot of research in this area too, and has written some great stuff. So he's a resource of all kinds for us. So I am Sarah Gammell. I'm happy to serve as TIDC's first research director. I came from the Deason Center, a place that many of you guys might know, where I worked on a project researching the Texas rural criminal legal system. And yes, my focus is primarily overhauling our data website, which we're running in coordination with PPRI. And whether you've looked at our website or not, it is one of the leading public defense data websites in the nation. It's used, as George was already saying, by researchers, reporters, county officials daily. There are folks locally making decisions based on this data. But however, as George and Scott have both said, the site is over a decade old. And so we're looking at improvements such as, how can it be easier for those entering and uploading data? We've got judges, auditors, lawyers that are constantly, giving us data. So how can we make that process easier? Looking at, how can folks take away, read and analyze data? Particularly groups like you, researchers, or others that are in public defense work, the media, the public, the counties. And then we want to make it, easier for the TIDC staff to have the data relatable and in meaningful ways, that somebody can call up and say, what's this trend? And we can have it better available. And so, this year, at the start of the year, we launched a discovery phase with PPRI, where we are just taking the time to understand better how folks are using the site. We identified kind of 8 main users. And so we were going to those different kind of groups of, individuals and contacting them for feedback. This has been in the form of surveys and, this group as well has been sent a survey by email. So if you didn't get it, I think George will drop it in the chat. We have a really short survey that will take you less than 10 minutes that will just help ask a few questions about using some data and some ways that we can improve our website. But then we've also had some small group discussions. And this is an excellent example of that. We've also gone to where we had a meeting with the MAC, coordinators on Monday, and we're going to be meeting with our, PD offices next week. There's just some smaller groups that we want to get some more targeted input from. To date, I think we've sent out more than like 800 surveys. And so we're casting the net wide, trying to get a lot of input from all these different groups. And then so as far as next steps is, we're not going to take all this stuff and say, thanks for just telling us something. We're going to spend the time to review all the data that we've collected, and based on your input, take steps towards rebuilding this data website. We anticipate this rebuilding phase taking several months. Jason at PPRI is working on just migrating one aspect, and I think he said it takes like 6 weeks. This is a very lengthy project that we're entering into, but we want to be informed as we make these decisions. And I think it's important just to note that, as a researcher, it could be tempting to collect a lot of data. But we are really trying to, at TIDC, hold to the commitment of collecting data that will serve the purpose of serving Texas indigent defense better. And so with that said, we want to get your input right now in this group, in this hour. We have 3 basic questions that we'd like to ask. And so what I'm going to do is ask all 3 of them. And just like, you've been doing for years now. If you want to answer one, unmute, respond. You can also just do it in the chat. You can respond to all 3. You can respond to one that jumps out. However you want to handle it. But the questions that we are interested in, at least as a starting point, is the first one: what data, if any, do you currently use from websites or organizations like TIDC? So we're just curious what you are currently using of data similar to ours. That's the first. The second is, what data visualizations and other information would you like to see added to a website, our website, or a website like ours? If you've never visited, don't let that limit your response. What would you like to see in your state? And then what other thoughts, kind of general, do you have for us about a data website that could help improve public defense? So I'll drop those in the chat, and then I'll just open it up for whoever would like to be brave enough to unmute first.
Hi, this is Bob Barukowitz in Seattle. I put some things in the chat. I do a lot of work on workload and caseload standards, and I'm very interested in compensation of conflict counsel and types of defenders systems. So all of that kind of information, I was just putting in the chat that, because right now I'm focused, among other things, on what conflict counsel are paid. And I realize that I can look at 239 counties on your website, but there's not one place on the website that has the fee schedules. And I know it's difficult because they all do it differently, each county. I just looked at a few of them while you were talking, and they're definitely different. But caseloads, if there's a way to have caseloads per attorney, the expenditures, how much people are how much counties are spending, how much of that comes from TIDC. Some of this stuff is all figure outable on your website now, but those are the kinds of things that I look for. And I'm very interested in investigation and expert witness use. Certainly the size of the county and the number of cases in the system are all important. I do some expert witness work, and I talk about the use of experts and investigators and social workers and paralegals. I suppose, to the extent that defenders report to you what kind of discovery challenges they have with electronic discovery and cop videos, whether or not they have those and what kind of systems they have to work with those, what kind of case management systems people have. So I'm interested in all that stuff. And so the more that you can have centrally available would be great. And I want to commend TIDC for the extraordinary work. I first started looking at Texas long before TIDC came into being, and the transformation of the practice is remarkable. Congratulations, Scott, on your interim. I had no idea until I got the message the other day that Geoff was leaving. It seems like he just got there. And I was stunned to see that it was 5 years already. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I appreciate all those comments. I see a hand. I feel like I'm back in the classroom.
I thought I would stick my hand up, and I'm happy to just like, I thought Bob's comments were very good. He actually covered a lot of issues. I think that like, I guess I have a couple of broad thoughts, and I'm not sure how responsive they are or precisely on point with your questions, Sarah, but I think that the website has a lot of data. I have used it and my colleagues have used it, and we really appreciate that Texas regularly publishes, for whatever kind of historical, like happy reason, a lot more data than other states do. And they have access to certain metrics, and I'm particularly attached to the appointment rate metrics that are really hard to get at. Maybe shouldn't be, but anyway, they're super revealing, I think super important. Obviously, you could talk about other metrics that would be desirable. Maybe we should have that conversation. But I do think Texas is like just really far ahead on this. I think that in terms of like the convenience to the user, there are a couple of things that occur to me. Like when we've constructed data sets out of the TIDC website, it has often involved quite a lot of labor on our end. So if you want to find the, a certain metric for all 254 counties, sometimes it's easy to download, sometimes it's not. I would love for just the website and the data and the downloadable feature somehow be more integrated. So if I could go in and say, and I'm sure there are examples out there of people sort of building sites like this, but if I could say, I want this metric, like the appointment rate, I want it for every county, I want it for the years 2017 to 21, and then please just give me that spreadsheet. That would be really awesome, because right now I have to make that by hand, and it that one's probably not that hard, but some of them are hard. It's just kind of a certain sort of the integration of the county level data might be easy to do. And by the way, I can't claim that I've necessarily fully explored your website, so it's possible some of this stuff already exists. The other thing that I think I notice sometimes is also that like you guys are like really sitting on a gold mine, and some of those pieces of data that you guys have, like I still find myself discovering new stuff. So I think it was in a conversation with Joel Lurans, who I see is on the call also, when I was talking about something like, the number of magistrations that happened in each county. And it turned out that like buried in a document, that number actually existed. And Joel was quick to say, like, I'm not sure I trust this number anyway. But it was a moment where I was looking for a piece of information that had been there all along, and it just wasn't obvious to me. So I think one thing that like I literally haven't had the time to do is just like frontier wealth of information that's on the website, and maybe identify all of the stuff that's kind of buried in documents, which actually could easily translate to a spreadsheet or a form or something like that, and made easy to download, subject to your judgment about what is reliable and what's not, and what's high priority and what's not. I understand all that, but I do wonder whether there might be an opportunity to do a sort of complete audit of what you actually have access to. And so much of it is only in a document form. As you guys know, one thing that we produced last year was a summary of eligibility policies around the state of Texas. And that required us to read each document. I actually realized a little bit later that you actually had done some of the work, for example, to find all the percentage of the federal poverty line that each county used. We had gone and remade that wheel, which I regretted. but there are some like straightforward metrics that you could probably that are just living in those documents which you could extract and make a lot easier to download. So that's a couple of things. There are lots of other things we could talk about. I would love to talk about other things, but I was just thinking about, like, if it was easy to automatically download a certain set of things for counties across certain years, that would be awesome if it was integrated. And then if there are just things that are buried that nobody knows are there, but which are valuable, thinking about trying to find those things and make them more accessible would be really awesome. But I'll stop.
Well, thanks, Andy. I will say that one of the first tasks that I had was to do this audit of what do we have, and it is an overwhelming amount. And so yeah, excellent points. I appreciate those. Meg, I see your hand up, please.
Yeah, so I agree with everything everyone said about how wonderful the website is. Like, when you go out looking in the rest of the world, you guys have so much more than everyone else. So, but we are talking about things we would like to see improved. And I think for me, like, the appointment rates are awesome, but there's such a mismatch between indicted cases from OCA and cases that are paid, that while I think like the numbers are probably proportional to the actual numbers, I think they get inflated. So for those of you that don't know, like, I'm pretty sure you still do it this way. If you've changed, let me know. But like, the percentage of cases that are appointed is from cases paid to attorneys. And that includes like any case that's appointed the entire lifetime of the case. And the bottom comes from OCA data, and OCA only counts cases that have been indicted or filed by information. And so just in terms of that number, like, I know so I know you do it because like OCA has the data, we can get it easily. Like, it's an amazing number to have. It's just one of those little things that I think if you guys have the time or the energy, or if there's some way to do it, that would be an awesome sort of tweak to that number. But other than that, like, I think what Andy's saying, like, I've read all the Fair Defense Act reports, and I know how, like, we try to compare counties in Texas, like, to our county or Travis County. And it's like, well, if this happens and then this like, some are like, all misdemeanor cases get a flat rate. So I think that would but I think it would be awesome if we could get a chart of stuff like that. So, but I always am so impressed by what you all have. So thank you all for doing data well. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that input, Meg. I appreciate it. Anyone else have other thoughts for us? The questions that we asked, which happy for you to spin off some that are more helpful or on top of your mind, are what data, if any, do you currently use from websites or organizations like TIDC? What data visualizations and other information would you like to see added to our website or a website like ours in your state? And what other thoughts do you have for us about our data website that can just generally help improve public defense?
You know, this is just off the top of my head, but and Texas has no obligation to do this, but maybe putting in some comparative data from other places that could help advance reform. And I mean, the hourly rates are terrible everywhere almost. And but being able to bring in some good ones, you know, maybe have a chart visualization. For example, I work with the city of Edmonds in Washington, and they're paying $125 an hour for misdemeanors. I think that's too low, and I'm going to try to get it higher. But, you know, there's places paying $46 an hour. So it could be that since you have way more capacity than most states in terms of collecting data, you could find good examples of higher compensation and put them on your website to help you in Texas to raise those rates, but also the rest of us around the country that are working on that have a central location to find that. And maybe you can invite people like me to send you stuff like that when we find it, so that you could put it on there. I just started filling out your survey, and I got to the question about, do you have a login for the website? And I don't. And so that's something I should get. But I really appreciate what you're doing. I had a meeting yesterday with a colleague who does, who has a software that assigns cases for parent representation for the state of Washington, and then does reports on that. And I mentioned to her the website that you guys have, because I think it's so much better than almost any place, and that she might want to take a look at that and thinking about how to expand what she's doing. And I just think it's great to have this conversation. I appreciate you doing it.
I appreciate your input. Thanks so much, Bob. That's great. Those are great things. I see another hand. Ryan, please go ahead.
Hi there. I'm in a somewhat of a different position than probably a lot of you. I'm a public defender in LA, and I create a platform that's used by a county in Texas. Excuse the background noise. So I'm always kind of thinking about serving the data up to TIDC and how to make things better. And one thing I'm wondering about is outcomes. In working with Texas, seems like there's a lot of emphasis on appointment, but I'm wondering about the actual client outcomes, if there's a way to collect more of that data, particularly, you know, across MAC and PD landscapes. I think that'd be really valuable to see, because I think that my own personal bias as a public defender myself is that there's a lot of value in that format and being able to tell that story with data and collecting it. And so on the CMS side, when we're, you know, gathering data around outcomes, I'm thinking about how do we get that in a way that's most useful, and how do we capture that? And I was having a conversation with, I think, Measures for Justice recently about even capturing offer data and like comparing offer data to outcomes and dispositions, which is very fuzzy and very hard to do, I'm discovering. But those are some of the things I think that would be really valuable and that we're thinking about as a provider to TIDC of data, like how do we get the best, cleanest data to you all? So.
Great. Thanks so much, Ryan. I appreciate that. There's another hand. David, go ahead.
Hi, I'm in Oregon, and I have honestly, I've not used the Texas website, but I'm here to glean what I can because we were working on building some data collection here. I was wondering if you guys could offer some insight on what counts as a case, because we've been having some very ground level disputes and difficulties at just defining what a case is for the purpose of these sort of case countings, and the variance from one county to the next about like what gets grouped into one charging document or what gets grouped across multiple charging documents, and that sort of thing.
That's a great question. I'm either going to pass that to George or Joel, because there are some nuances to some of the counties that I don't remember off the top of my head. Go ahead, Joel.
Yes, I'll post this momentarily, but a case is, it's basically every charging instrument. If it's in an indictment, it's one case. And an indictment can have multiple charges, or it can have a single charge. And if it's multiple charges, it just counts as one. Now, if it's broken up separately, let's say there's 5 charges and they're called into 5 indictments, it's 5 cases. So there's not an apples to apples measure. It's more like an apples to cranberry apples. So that is a good question. And there's no requirement that DAs follow a standard. In some jurisdictions, they like to lump them together, but most of them, they like to separate, but they don't always do it.
Yeah, that's funny. We're having a conversation about case definition again, which I think is one of those ongoing. It was the first conversation I had coming into indigent defense was what's a case, and it keeps coming up. So I think it's one of those things that we all kind of grapple with in some ways.
Just to add to what Joel was describing, because it's looked at from how it's charged, it results in having to look backward after the case is resolved frequently to actually come up with what the actual case numbers are.
Oh, yeah. And then sometimes, yeah, anyway, I can.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Meg. Any other thoughts for us about what we're doing? What would be helpful? What do you currently use? Or what are you a heavy user of?
I think, again, like another like outcome kind of related measure, but one thing we always talk about is bonding rates. And it's so important, sort of early case intervention. And so that's just one of those outcomes that is in my wish list.
Great, thank you.
I wonder if anybody has any suggestions of like other good websites that they use, whether it be, you know, Indigent Defense or otherwise, that has good data visualization that maybe we could replicate in some way. Silence.
I think they're looking it up. They're looking for those websites. They can't remember the name and they're looking it up just for you. Maybe
I think this might be like a longer conversation, but there are like a million great examples, right? I mean, so my favorite web for data visualization is the New York Times, because they have like an entire team of full-time professionals that do that, and they're like incredibly creative, and it's totally brilliant. At the Deason Center, we have some graphic designers who we contract with. I think that the starting place are I think mapping is a really good starting place. You know, your website features a map front and center, and that makes like perfect sense. Expanding on that sort of concept to have that map be able to be colored in based on, you know, here are the heavy caseload areas, or whatever other variable would be probably like, it's not exactly a baby step, because my assumption is that in the background you've got to build something completely new, but still that would make a lot of sense to me. I think that like comparing counties is something that your data are just great for, and being able to visualize them, maybe layer a couple of things on top of each other would be like, you know, the data are there to do it, the visualization is not yet made. So to me, that's probably the way I would go. The other thing that we've actually done with your data using Tableau in our center is we've animated maps over time. So you can see like, this is on a web page that Dr. Gammell helped put together a while ago. but if you have the whole map and you have something like the representation rate in 2011, and then you can advance to 2012, 13, and 14, those animations are really cool. And again, like those are data that you just have, but you have to, so we use Tableau for that. We also, because Tableau is actually pretty good at producing maps and coloring them in. Obviously that's to use Tableau and then to buy the licenses that allow you to publish Tableau dashboards on the website costs zero money. I don't know how much it is actually. And there's some training barriers of like getting your staff up to speed on having the data be formatted correctly and then into the actual application. I'm not a Tableau user. I'm told it is a bit of a learning curve, but that seems to me, that kind of thing seems to me like it might be attainable. But there are definitely other directions to go in, but I think starting with maps makes sense just because of the fact that you have so much county level.
Andy's mention of maps makes me think of the Sixth Amendment Center website, which uses maps to, you can click on different states and get information. So I like being able to do that.
That's great. Thank you, Andy. We like a good map at TIDC as well. We just don't have them all up there right now. So that is one of the things that we're looking at.
I don't know if you guys have worked with Measures for Justice at all, but I know they've put a lot of thought into figuring out what makes for a useful dashboard and useful overtime graphics.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts, either on what visualizations and websites you really like, or just in general, what other data visualizations you'd like to see on ours? Any thoughts you have just to help us use this as a tool to improve public defense?
I know what states have is super different, but in Utah, someone with a connection to our jail data was able to make a really good dashboard on like currently incarcerated people, and especially as that relates to pre-trial and the breakdown there, it's super relevant for public defense. So I just don't know if that's something you have, but the Salt Lake County one on that is pretty handy.
I have definitely not seen that, and we'll look that up. Thank you.
There is the jail standards has that information. I don't know if it's easy to like download, but they do for each county each month report. Not shockingly, I have some issues with the way that they report pre-trial, but that's okay. Like if they have a parole hold, anyway. But it is useful to see how many people have a pending case in the courts while they're in jail.
Yeah, unfortunately, Texas does not have like a uniform case management system across the state. And so it's all county by county. OCA, is getting, reported data like folks had mentioned, and they are working on building a uniform case management system that would be available to like rural counties. But right now it's all, it's all county by county. And yeah, it's not like, it would be great, right? If we could just like log into like one place and like look at the data all across the state and, or like suck it into our, into our website and then push it out in some beautiful way. But unfortunately, it doesn't really exist. And there are some counties out there that are like building dashboards with more live data. Like Harris County comes to mind. I think Hayes County may have even has something. I think they worked with Vera to build a dashboard on their jail data for more like live data. But yeah, unfortunately, if you look at our website, it's all backward looking, and we are relying on the counties to report the data to us. And so, we have some ability to fact check, but it's somewhat limited as well. So it would be great if, unfortunately, we're just kind of limited by like how data is collected in Texas. There's been pushes at the legislature to, improve it, but we're just not quite there.
Again, Scott, I think part of it is just that you guys are so great. Like, these are all the other amazing things we would like. So you're a victim of your own success in some ways. But yes, you're right. Texas data is so different county to county. The way the process works, like some counties, this is off. So if anyone, off topic a little bit. So if anyone has anything else, but It's like some counties give case numbers of the arrest, some don't give them until indictment. Like trying to standardize all that is a mess. So thank you for what you guys do.
Thanks. Yeah, I think there's I think it is, you're right. Like if we do good work, then maybe that will kind of push the legislature or OCA or like, counties to like, make their stuff better too. And yeah, I don't know, maybe one day we can get to some level of uniformity. That would be great. Andy asks, any way to get the number of requests for counsel at magistration in addition to the number of appointed, even in a few places, if not all? An easy way? No. Joel, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is kind of one of the things we do, right? As part of our policy monitoring, we go out and we look, we got to pull case files. And so you're like literally like by hand, or sometimes we'll get access to like their Odyssey system, and you'll be able to go in there and like click on a document and like see what it looks like. Was there a request in there? What was the date? And it's like all hand coding, and it's arduous work. So it's not like there's a database, right, where somebody is entering request to counsel, yes or no, date of request, like that is just Joel, if you have any insights into that or corrections, please provide.
Yes, so OCA collects this data for justices of the peace and for municipal judges. They report on a monthly basis. Not all of them do it, and sometimes the data is suspect. Now, larger counties often have associate judges that do the magistrate warnings, but the small counties often will have mostly JPs or municipal judges do it. On the weekends, there might be like a district judge will do it. They have no obligation to report this data, but justices of the peace and municipal judges do. So we have maybe about half records for half of them. But there are problems when we do monitoring. We kind of go and compare, does this really match up? And sometimes it doesn't. So it's a weak part of the data and it's reported to OCA, but there is something there.
Okay. And yeah, unfortunately, OCA's data, they have some of the problems that we have, right? It's like, it's hard to like figure out where to find stuff and like which of these reports is going to have the data you're looking for. And, it's an antiquated system too.
Well, we are getting close to the end, and I'm always okay with giving people their time back. But I'll hang on for just another minute to see if anybody wants to give us any other input, ask a question, anything like that you think could be helpful for us as well. Okay. Well, I am going to take the silence as the opportunity to give you back your time. And before I do, I'll drop, I'm really not good at like putting in chat and talking at the same time, but I'll try to drop my email in the chat before you log off. If you have any other thoughts, if you've taken the survey and there's still something else that you want to just let us know, feel free to email me. George, if you'll put your and our PPRI email in there too. We'd want to hear from you. If you go, have a great weekend and then Monday you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this. Feel free to shoot it to us. Let us know. your input is really important. You guys are, in the field doing these things, and this data is making a difference where you are. And so we want to help, just continue to serve Texas as best as we can. So I will now put that in because I'll stop talking. And I'm grateful for your time. I'm grateful for IDRA hosting us, for the Deason Center hosting us, and look forward to just continuing to get your input on this. And our team can hang around for just a minute for any questions. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
All right, everybody loves having their time back. Thanks, Kenitra, for setting this up.
All right, I didn't say that, but
Oh,
thank you.
okay. I
Well,
always assume
well,
you do
so-
these things.